I love it. All right, welcome to the Locker Room, where we break down sermon stories in Scripture for the race of our faith. If this podcast has been serving you, hit follow and the notification bell. That way you can stay up to date on all new episodes. Erik Veker, Phil Sims. It's so good to finally have you. I've been begging Phil for literally like 3 years to come on the podcast.
What pushed you over the edge?
He said no. And then, and normally it's a couple weeks out, and then out of a blue on Monday, I'm like, dude, you got to come on. And he was like,
I think he hit me at a moment of caffeination or something. I don't know, man. He caught me slipping.
Tiny window of opportunity.
You know what's crazy is like Phil's become a really close friend to both you and me, Erik.
Yeah.
And but we didn't even know each other till 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Where we met at a bachelor party. Jackson Brown's bachelor party.
Yeah.
And but you and Shayna have been coming. Now you and Shayna have become dear friends to me and Mallory in our house church. And but like it's crazy to think that we didn't even know each other existed 3 years ago. So,
no. And then we had the you like guacamole moment on the bachelor party weekend, and we've been friends ever since, man.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But in particular, the reason that I wanted to have Phil on this podcast is because on Sunday, Erik, you walked us through that part of Paul's letter to the Philippians where he's talking about pressing on towards Christian maturity. You did a great job with that. And I think when I think about someone that has thought very intentionally about what it means to develop in maturity, and in a very real and raw way through the ups and downs of life, both vocationally and in your personal family life, I think about you, Phil.
Certainly.
And so why don't you just give us kind of well, first of all, how long have you and Shayna been at Crossroads?
Probably about 10 years.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
And you're in your late 30s now, but you've seen a lot of road. You're CPA, but you've been in a lot of different companies and leadership positions. Have had to learn through the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family and
your story.
Yeah. So born and raised in West Michigan. Grew up in Grand Rapids. Went to Grand Rapids Public all the way through. Graduated from Creston High School.
Let's go. Now City High.
Now City Middle High School. Still a cool building.
It
Still
is,
a cool
dude.
building.
Did you grow up in that house right around the street from Tryg?
We actually moved. We moved up the hill from Tryg when I was like a sophomore or junior in high school. Before that, we grew up right by Kingman's Market.
Okay, so not far.
Yeah, but
not far.
Yeah.
Good childhood. Started working pretty young. Had a paper out back when you had to do your own collections as like a 12-year-old child. It was so intimidating having like stoic, what I thought at the time old men, probably what I look like now, and you'd be asking them for like $8 so you could keep delivering the paper. That was pretty intimidating. And had a good childhood. Spent a lot of time around my grandpa, who to this day is my hero. He passed a couple years back, but he was super influential in, I would say, spiritual formation and the model of fatherhood and just sincere interest. We split and stacked wood together basically for a living all summer and burn anything from Dutch furniture that my grandma didn't know was going on the fire to car bumpers to baseball bats. So it was a lot of fun, man.
I love that.
He was really influential in my life. And so I think work ethic was a big part of my psyche from a young age. I think I inherently just had this desire to prove myself worthy of love, which will probably be a theme later in discussion. Was pretty accomplished with what I set my hands to, but just never really filled the void. So you just keep going till you get tired in like your mid-30s after like 15 years of that. And then ended up going to Detroit Mercy, studied mechanical engineering for a year and a half, did a lot of math and chemistry, met physics, bought a $230 textbook I never opened, and I might still have it because I couldn't return it, and I just couldn't bring myself to throw it away. If Grandpa were still alive, we'd probably throw
Right,
it
I was
on
going
the
to say,
fire.
that sounds like a good kindling.
Yeah, so ended up moving back home. My parents split at the time, and I'm the oldest of 3 boys, so me and my brothers were pretty close during that time. And yeah, kind of a season of just trying to find my way. Worked 3rd shift for Lowe's, night stocking, water coolers and toilets, and water heaters and toilets. And took me 6 years to get through college. Ended up at GRCC studying health sciences because I was really into bodybuilding at the time, and thought that maybe a hobby could be a profession that I got into. Didn't really like that, dropped out from GRCC. About that time, I met my wife at the church we were going to, and we started dating. And then basically it was, I knew she was the one, and how do we make enough money to be able to afford to get married? So ended up going to work for a tree service on crews, and went to college. Ended up at Grand Valley, got a degree in accounting. And I think at that time, my career journey, both my parents had college degrees, and there was just a ton of pressure to, probably self-imposed. It was never like explicitly stated to me, but just to be worthy, you gotta know what you're gonna do somehow magically when you're like 17, and
for sure
know what degree you're gonna get and what they even mean. And so I just always had this kind of drive to graduate from college. Like, that was the goal. That was the principle. There was really not a whole lot of thinking outside of that. So yeah, I was working 3rd shift, night stocking, doing the tree thing, and really wanted to get married. And so we ended up getting married, and I enrolled at Grand Valley State. Was just longing for something that I felt like I was good at, and accounting really made sense to me. I really liked my professor, and really it wasn't a whole lot of thinking beyond that. Just it finally,
This works.
It harmonized with life and like this desire. So
Right.
Grand Valley really pushed Big Four. So the CPA profession, I was not smart enough to get into the Big Four, so I went to the 5th largest accounting firm, BDO, out of Grand Rapids, and was there for, including an internship, about 6 years, and traveled all over the U.S. and Grand Cayman for different publicly traded clients and local clients as well. Saw a lot of road, a lot of business. It was really...
So that's late 20s to early 30s?
Yeah, that was like, I think I was 23 when I started with the firm. And
where are you at spiritually in this point for these 6 years? You're attending church.
Okay, so spiritually...
No, I'm kind of interweaving the story because
Yeah.
you're 6 years at the CPA.
So spiritually, I grew up quite frustrated as a human. I've always kind of felt like I have a soul that's at war with itself, and I probably make life way harder than I need to. When I went to Detroit Mercy, I did whatever I wanted. And I would say that I had a desire for the Lord, but really didn't think too hard about just wanting to do my own thing.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of thinking about it. It was just living in that freedom and living on campus. And for some reason, the cool kids were doing all the things, and so naturally you just kind of get sucked up in it. I think I really galvanized my relationship with the Lord during that time. Was living in a dorm with, I was paying for the room. My roommate Tay was paying for the room, and then Raul was sleeping on the couch. And I would go out with those guys all the time, and Campus Crusade for Christ was on campus, and there was some really interesting humans that were involved in that just started inviting me. And so I started attending, and I was like, this is way better. It just
than what I've been pursuing.
It just felt right. And so I went from doing whatever I wanted to staying in the dorm when Tay and Raul would go out reading my Bible, and like I didn't do it to show off. It was actually quite embarrassing, but there was something that just compelled me in that season. So that was kind of the Detroit Mercy era. Fast forwarding to, you know, the BDO era, at the time there was kind of this work hard, play hard mentality. And so I think I think about life a lot as like a value hierarchy. So if you think of a ladder and you have these rungs on a ladder, as a human, if you distill life down simply and think about this hierarchy during the Detroit Mercy era, like my relationship with the Lord was at the top, at the cost of things that were forced to be below. So I had a value hierarchy change. And when I joined BDO, it was so intoxicating. It's up or out. It's, you know, really competitive. You're fighting to get on the best engagements, and you're just, that need for validation and status was getting met. And I did well there. And so my value hierarchy changed during that season. And it was, my meaning and sense of self came from my career. And life gets sideways when your value hierarchy is not right. And so that was, I think, it was a hard season of just me trying to find my way. And trying things, trying the value hierarchy out and seeing what deserved to be at the top of the rung.
Yeah. Did that carry over now as you climb the ladder in the first company that you become CEO of in your early 30s? Is this mentality now from going from BDO to...
Very much so. So the top of the rung was still career. And during that time, I just remember that was a really dark time for me. We met shortly after I was coming out of that, I think.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, I was with a company out of Granville for 7 years, and spent 2 years in finance, and then 5 as the CEO. We grew it from 45 to 220 employees, and then sold it through an ESOP to the employees. And I resigned after that. But during that season,
and from the outside, I remember meeting you and like, this guy's got it together. He's CEO of this company. Yeah. But since I've gotten to know you, you were crumbling inside.
Yeah, in terrible ways. So I guess it's just a common theme that, you know, the value hierarchy was still career was the top, more than marriage, more than I had my first son, Theo. The first year I was there, had my second son, Wyatt, a couple years in. And then we had our third son, Eddie, towards the tail end of that really hard time. And he was born with Angelman syndrome, which is... There's a lot of good stuff on Google actually about it, but global cognitive and physical delays. So that was a hard blow for Shayna and I. And I think during that season, when I think back, the unique thing and unique reflection around that was when you have a CEO job title, everyone's your friend. And there's a real authority dynamic to leadership where I think that to the degree the humans around you aren't wholly healed, they're modifying themselves a little bit just because of you and the fact that they're talking to you. And so I think there's a lot of organized theater around power and leadership and authority. And, you know, after resigning, a lot of people that were my friends at the time weren't anymore. And that was a pretty interesting season, kind of just stripping me down. So to kind of try to have a sense of closure around that season, Theo was 3 and Wyatt was 1, and I was in a very, very dark place mentally because my value hierarchy was work. And if you're leading a business, the likelihood of something going wrong every day is extremely high. And if you need things to go well for you to feel good, like we got to hit these certain earnings or revenue growth or employees have to be happy or pick a topic, like you're always losing somewhere.
Right.
And so the accumulation of that on my soul was just so heavy. And
you had been living under that worldview, even though you would have said you're a Christ follower.
Yeah, but
You're living under the burden of the...
Yeah, I was just thinking wrong. Like, my sense of worth was, and where I was looking for worth was wrong. So the way I've learned to think about it now, after a lot of help from a lot of people, anything I say that's wise is stolen from somebody else, by the way.
Join the club.
Yeah. So the way I began to learn to think about it was we're created by an intelligent creator, and I think a lot of my dark moments were because I was doing things for my being as opposed to from my being. So for my being looks like I need revenue to be right. I need my bosses to be happy with me. I need my employees to be happy. For my being, like I need this. Mm. And so then the temptation is, well, I got to control things I can't control. And that's a recipe for absolute crisis if you agree that that's the rules for how life should be done. From your being, which is what I've learned, is I was intelligently created, worthy of love. And by worthy, I don't mean that I'm not sinful and a fallen human, much like the reflections from your teaching on Sunday. So worthy to me, to kind of double click on that, is when our Father looks at us, he sees Jesus on us. If we truly bend the knee and our life is yielded to the Lord and we've received him. Mm. And so, when the word says that his righteousness is imputed onto us, it's like I'm the bread, he's the peanut butter. The Father's looking at me, he sees the peanut butter.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the fact that I'm bread, but like there's something beautiful that happens there, and beginning to address what I said early on as a theme from childhood of I need to perform in order to be loved. I need to do things for my being.
Yeah.
Grasping at the world.
It's exhausting.
Changed. And so, like, if you can, and it sounds really simple and we've heard it a lot, but like, if you can truly stop and go, I was created worthy of love. And it's true that when my Heavenly Father and my Creator, a creative being, looks at me, he actually feels delight. Mm. And so if you inventory your life, like most humans, and you go, who's one person that you felt delight from when they looked at you? It's kind of hard to like find that. And for me, it was my grandpa. And delight to me felt like eye contact. And it felt like him having all of the awkward father-son conversations, asking me hard questions, and showing me an example of love in the form of clarity and interest that I kind of reset back to. And a lot of this work was done towards the tail end of my time at the business in Granville with Gary Heim, that the Lord used him to change my life. And True North is the book that he wrote, and it's probably the book that I give away the most since my time there.
Can I tease one thing out before you keep going?
Yeah.
You said something fascinating. How many people do you feel this sense of delight when they look at you? Okay, you say your grandpa, and then the examples you give are fascinating. It wasn't because he buttered you up, per se. I'm sure he doted over you as a grandson, but what you admitted there was challenge.
Yeah.
Was concern and love for you displayed through caring for your soul, which was moderately uncomfortable, I'm sure, at times. At least some of the things.
Grandpa was really good.
That's a fascinating insight, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's delight.
Which is exactly what you taught Sunday. Like, follow me. Like, that's follow me. We're splitting wood and we're stopping. And he's just asking, he's probably been thinking about it for 5 minutes, and then he just asks me like a savage question relative to what I was used to being asked. And I answered honestly, and it was really scary.
And what do you remember a particular? Are you thinking of a particular question right now that he asked you?
Yeah, I mean, I was at an age where girls were really were really interesting, and he would ask, just fill in the blanks, like
Right.
savage grandpa level questions about how I was behaving. And it was really good. It was cleansing, and it was comforting actually to receive that energy from him. And
Say
so,
more. Is it because there was a knowledge of your soul through those conversations? Was there a full-blown love that you knew was sort of unconditional? I'm still trying to make that connection. It's fascinating to me that's sort of
because
what
you obviously
you're teasing
weren't
out.
bothered by those questions from him, and him being the key component of the equation. Even though they pressed you, didn't bother you. You felt the sense of love.
All right, I've got an answer for that. So the questions were scary but good, is what I would say. So I think he showed me an example of strength and love. And so they were scary because maybe the answer I offered wasn't always what he wanted to hear. But he continued inviting me over and continued to spend time with me despite the answers maybe not being what he wanted. And it reminds me of what Matt Kenny said to me once, which is men, if you really distill their psyche down, wrestle with this root lie of if people really knew me, they would reject me. And so what he then goes on to say is, men address that in three ways. It's been a while since I've thought about this, so let's see if I can remember. So they fight it, which is what I did through career. So you say you don't say that's a lie. You actually validate the lie and you fight it with your behavior. So you actually validate it as true and you respond to that lie as true, and you say, I'm going to prove that wrong. I'm going to prove I am worthy.
Okay.
So I'm playing by the ground rules of a lie. And I'm going to go aspire, and I'm going to get status, and I'm going to
the
gain
presupposition is wrong.
Yeah.
And so everything that follows is wrong.
Exactly. So that was
fight
it, believe it, which is, shame, and I'm just unworthy. I'm just, Eeyore energy, right?
Yeah.
Like real negative. And so you believed it at that point.
Yeah.
You've also validated it. So you've succumbed to it in that way.
Which has some overlap with the fight it, because you believe it to a certain extent to fight it.
Yeah. And
right?
what they have in common is you're responding to that as though it's true.
Right.
And then the third is to medicate. So pick a vice.
Preach it.
Pick a vice. And that was...
And sometimes we're doing the combination of all three.
Yeah. So let me connect that to my
Your
grandpa
story.
and what you're getting
Yeah.
at. So he proved that lie untrue. He really knew me, and he sought me out, and he proved the lie wrong. He still had me by, still asked questions, and was still there.
Yeah.
So that's why it was scary but good.
And now we're on the topic of growing in maturity.
I assume you guys had a good time together too. It wasn't just intense all the time, or was it intense all the
Dude,
time?
if you're burning car bumpers,
you're having a good time.
You're having a good
this
time.
Is like.
Oh yeah, I mean he taught me to shoot guns,
Yeah.
and I shot competitively in high school and spent a lot of time in the woods, and he taught me to see what he saw in me, and he saw in me more than I saw in myself. And so he was always throwing me in situations that I didn't feel like I was equal to, but just because of his energy and the fact that it was Grandpa's idea, I'm like,
let's go for it.
I'll try anything once, Grandpa.
Yeah.
So
What a special relationship.
yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
He's a man of God.
Yeah, I see him being very Pauline, in the text from Sunday where Paul says, join with me, and modeling my example. Your grandpa wasn't following a regimented discipleship program. He was asking you to do life and being intentional with those little moments, burning a car bumper. But look at how profound of an impact you can say years later decades
I
later.
wonder if those fumes have anything to do with sort of the head case that you were describing.
My hair's probably wavy for that reason.
It was straight until me and Grandpa started burning carcinogens.
Yeah.
So you crash out, as they would say, from this position. But is there anything to add there too about how God used Eddie in this moment? Because you're in a dark place. Eddie comes along. How do you respond to that? Because I know I can say from experience now that he's one of the greatest blessings in your life, and you would say that with resounding confidence and joy.
Yeah. Yeah, not a false joy. At the time, I think Shayna and I felt like, based on how tired I was, that we just couldn't handle another thing. And then we got the diagnosis, which was about a year after he was born. And kind of long and the short of it is it starts a grieving process, because as a father, you don't daydream about stewarding a life that doesn't play frisbee and baseball and talk. And so for Shayna and I, it was a grieving process where we kind of had to let go of all of that. And the beauty of having properly grieved it is any step of progress he makes is a win now, because you've kind of reset the waterline. And so, he's 5 now, learning to walk, and a bundle of joy. To answer your question about what he's done for me, he's never said a word to me, and he needs a lot of care. And there are moments where I just stop and think, the way I feel for him is truly unconditional. Like, the resources he requires, it's a joy to provide. And he hasn't done anything, air quote, you know what I mean? Like,
to deserve that.
Yeah, so it's a good example in my life of, Rod reflected once on Eustace and the dragon and the claw and the scales coming off and really being stripped down. And that's one part of my life of being stripped down. And there's joy on the other side if you don't shove the emotions and not deal with them. Because I think of emotions as like a pool toy. So like, you can shove the pool toy down into the water, but it's going to pop back up as soon as you get tired. So you got to deal with it. And I think, you're teaching on Sunday, which is probably where you guys want to go next, and like maybe talk a little more about that. But like, the pursuit of maturity is just this continual process of unlearning bad, relearning new. That's how I would think about maturity. And so the other thing I'll say as a caution that has been true in my own life is you can't teach a man something he thinks he already knows. So you're not able to do the unlearn, relearn if you think you already know. And with the pool toy analogy, and you're trying to connect that to maturity, it's like, well, how do you deal with the pool toy? Learn. Tell yourself the truth. You're the most dangerous person on earth that you can be untruthful with. And get around good counsel, which is also what you taught on Sunday, and help people rewire your thinking around that. Yeah. And what I learned through that is I am a human and I have thoughts, not I am my thoughts. So to use an analogy for that, and I use this a lot still, is if you believe you are your thoughts, you're in the stream of your thoughts. Your thoughts are the stream flowing, and you're standing in the middle of the stream, and you're going to get tired because your thoughts never stop. And so if you believe you are your thoughts, then you're in the weight of that current, and it's constantly pushing against you, and you get tired as a human, and eventually you're just kind of floating with your thoughts. You're just going with the current. To believe that I am a human and I have thoughts implies agency and a separation. So if you can sit on the riverbank and your thoughts are flowing past, you're not straining, and you're letting them flow past because they will always exist.
It's good.
And the process of unlearning and relearning can happen through curiosity and observation. And I think that separation really helped me because, prior to that realization, I think I believed I am my emotions, I am my thoughts, and those are pretty messy things to be standing in the stream of as a human to this very day.
For sure.
So that separation means you're suspending certainty, and we've developed a deep friendship because there's a principle that goes, fear and curiosity can't coexist in the same room. So if you can prove this is true. So like if a certain person calls you right now and you feel yourself going to fight or flight, there's fear there. That's a signal. It's like a check engine light sign, right? If you can have relationships of curiosity is like the cousin of joy, of play, of creativity, which is, as image bearers of God, and you think about the fruit of the Spirit, the energy around the fruit of the Spirit and creativity and joy is the means to grow and learn.
It's good.
So a lot of times you're in fear when you're in the stream. You're afraid you're going to get too tired to keep going. You're afraid that you'll never be able to change the stream, but you can remove yourself from that. It's an option.
100%. And now I just think of Paul's language in Romans 12:1. Do not conform, unlearn bad, to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. There's an active process of that mind renewal that has to take place.
Unlearn, relearn.
Unlearn, return.
Forever.
Learn, taking captive thoughts to Christ. So, there's a sense of agency there. I'm going to take a thought and I'm going to captive. And this is all part of the process of maturity, right? Unlearn bad, relearn good, which requires, if I'm hearing you correctly, which I think you're exactly right, that there's a level of humility. You can't learn anything if you're proud.
No, I think back to the grandpa thing, one thing he used to say to me is, everyone's good for something, even if it's a bad example. I think most bad examples are men who think that they already know.
Yeah.
And I'm not bashing men and mankind.
No, for sure.
Like, I'm just saying there's examples that are a lot like Ben Franklin, I think, said once, most men die when they're 30 but aren't buried till they're 70. To me,
tease that out.
That terrifies me. So to be dead at 30 is to stop unlearning and relearning in its simplest form.
Yeah.
So you just
they haven't changed since they're 35.
Right. And it's really sad. It's really sad because it doesn't need to be that way, which is what you taught about. So it's
pursue.
It's pursuing.
It's the pursuit. And
exert yourself.
There's
life. Let me ask you a
Growth.
question about that too, because the first point, so we talked about running with ambition, walking with intention, and then standing with expectation. Which, dude, if you know my brother, you love the alliteration. I love it. It's beautiful.
Less alliteration. Alliteration would be like 3 C's.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, which is also something you'd correct me on.
Sort of a rhyme.
But anyway, no. My point is this.
ION.
Okay, so let's start with that running with ambition concept.
Get your literary terms correct, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
So this is a question for you because I love how you talked about running with ambition. This is part of the process of growing in maturity. And what I heard from your stories, you talk about climbing the corporate ladder, and now you've been over a CEO in multiple companies. So like that trajectory has not stopped. Your ambition hasn't stopped. And I think that sometimes we can falsely say, well, we should get rid of ambition. But how have you learned the difference between like, oh, this is fleshly ambition and this is a good ambition? Or do you just think ambition's bad in general?
No, I think ambition's the wrong thing to focus on changing
The direction.
if it's not going well. Ambition is an input, the value hierarchy I talked about is your direction. So
It's good.
the value hierarchy was the issue. It wasn't the ambition. And
Can I read you a quote from John Tyson on ambition? This is
Hit me, man.
fantastic.
Sounds like you're going to, whether we say yes or no.
Tryg, would you read me the quote? I can't wait.
I was waiting for you to set me up.
Yeah.
The opposite of ambition is not humility, it's sloth, passivity, timidity, and complacency. We sometimes like to comfort ourselves by imagining that the ambitious are prideful and arrogant, so that those of us who never risk, never aspire, never launch out into the deep get to wear the moralizing mantle of humility. But this imagining is often a thin veil for a lack of courage, even laziness. Playing it safe is not humble. The truth is, when it comes to your life, you are not at war with ambition. You are at war for ambition, godly ambition. Without godly ambition, you will collapse back into a cocoon of self. Without godly ambition, your vision will be reduced to your own wants and needs and desires. You won't recognize it at first, but instead of seeking first the kingdom of God, you will simply seem to seek the American dream. So I love that quote on ambition, because he's saying, like you just said, it's not the input, it's the direction of the input.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think sometimes we have falsely given people an understanding that to have ambition as a Christian is wrong.
Right.
It's not ambition that is what is wrong. It's where
Selfish ambition.
It's the hierarchy that you were talking about.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I was reading up a little bit last night on the whole ambition concept, and I think one of the commentary pieces that I read was, Paul was possibly speaking to the church pertaining to false doctrine, which was a group of believers who believe that because it is all done,
there's nothing left.
There's nothing left to do. And so yes, to what you're saying, Tryg.
What's been tremendously helpful to me is this simple line that the gospel is opposed to earning, not to effort. If you can get that straight in your mind, you can save yourself from a lot of sloth, a lot of mental gymnastics, because in a right way, we should be allergic to earning. There's, of course, nothing we can do to earn that which Christ has earned for us. He's already earned it. Mm-hmm. But if you stop there, you drift into a life that's not worthy of the gospel, a life that doesn't reflect the kingdom of heaven, a life that doesn't show any sense of effort. I've loved that Rod's emphasis in this series, a line he keeps returning to is living a life worthy of the gospel. What a great line that is. And exertion is a part of that. That's another word that I think we're just allergic to, that we don't need to be allergic to. It's like, go for it. Mm-hmm. Not because you need to find not for yourself, but from yourself.
Yeah.
What was your line? Not for your being.
For your being. You're doing it
from your being.
Yeah.
You're loved. You're accepted. You're part of a community.
Yeah.
They're running too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things you can do there. So run. Exert yourself.
Yeah.
I was thinking all week about Jesus' words. Strive to enter by the narrow gate. Strive to enter by the narrow gate. And I wondered if that was in Paul's mind, having heard the words of Jesus from the other disciples, if when he's talking about straining forward, if he had Jesus in mind, both his life as an example of someone who strove, but also his teaching. Mm-hmm. Strive.
What's that shift look like practically, tangibly now in your day-to-day work from living a really ambitious, you've never stopped living an ambitious life.
Yeah.
You were living from a very unhealthy place, and that ambition was fueled by toxic chemicals versus good, clean energy and fuel.
Yeah.
But like, what's that shift look like now? Since I would say you've probably described it as almost like a 4 or 5 year journey of relearning.
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah, back to something I was saying earlier, it connects to this, is the distinction for me was if I I ask myself this question every morning. Do I believe that I was created worthy of love? And I already explained the worthy piece, so I want to be careful with that language.
It isn't
Yeah.
the fluffy, like,
Yeah.
me being me. Yeah.
Yeah, but because you understand the imputed righteousness, created for delight. Most mornings my answer is no. If I'm honest with myself. And again, I've learned that you're the most dangerous person you can lie to. So if the answer is no, then the natural progression of thought is why. And you chase that lie down. And you reveal it.
It's fascinating.
And we talk about lies a lot in our lives as friends. We've talked a lot about lies.
Yeah.
And so the motive behind how you approach the day is going to be first informed by that why in the road.
Yeah.
And so
that's a fascinating habit that you have, man.
That's
And
powerful.
habits-
The first thought
Yeah.
in the morning.
yeah.
Can dictate
Habits
so
are the
much.
silent architects of our lives. I read yesterday. Habits are the silent architects of our lives. What a habit! Even if you can have the honesty and say,
Yeah.
"I answered the question in a way I don't want
Which,
to."
by the
but
way,
you're
takes
asking,
courage.
You're
It takes
asking
courage
that
to
question.
ask that question.
But it's also dumb not to.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
No, but I'm
Because
saying, but like
yeah.
it'd be easy to avoid that because the answer can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to look
it
yourself
is.
in the mirror and say, I don't believe that I'm worthy of love.
Yeah.
You start your day with repentance.
But it's like, but the reality is,
can't even drink my coffee without repenting.
dude, yeah, 1,000%.
Sorry.
Yeah, keep going. We got you off your rhythm.
You're about to get me silly. Yeah, so the why in the road is that, and I think that as it pertains to that's what you guys are saying though is real. And so I didn't start talking about this for a long time. I just wrestled with it. Mm-hmm. And I also wrestle with the fact that the answer is most of the time no. Because I just thought that if I'm smart enough, then magically I'll be able to turn my nose to yeses. But the means to do that is just to call out the lie and address it. So then you have your why in the road for the day. And from there, the next question I ask myself is, does today have joy for me to experience or pain for me to avoid? So if I've started with step one and I can get the lies addressed, which I'm not even saying that I address these lies in like 5 minutes. Like sometimes it's a process because there's some buggers with some deep roots sometimes. But then the double check on that for me is if I, again, not lying to myself, if I can begin to think about my day with joy to be experienced, now I'm moving from my being, not for my being. If I'm in a mindset of avoiding pain for the day and for a living and for years, which is what I did, then that informs the fact that you are doing things for your being. If you're avoiding pain, you're needing life to go a certain way for your sense of self, as opposed to getting out of the stream and getting right with the Lord and how he views you, rooting out the lies, then the ambition, then the striving. The operative word here is motive. So the motive behind everything you do then, and I'm being grossly idealistic here, to be clear. This is not always true in my life every day, but then the motive behind your actions are from your being. And you can strive and you can be ambitious with your value hierarchy correct, which is that you can't answer that question yes, by the way, if the top rung on your ladder is not your relationship with the Lord. Like there's no way that's possible.
Yeah, but you're putting modern language to what Paul will later say at the end of this letter when he talks about, I've learned the secret of what it means to be content in all circumstances. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you operate from the presupposition that you're not worthy of love and that life is to avoid pain at all costs, you're starting your day on a foundational lie.
Right.
that is bound to fail unless the circumstances stay perfectly ordered the way that you think that they should be.
Yeah.
But if you're secure in who you are and you expect that there is joy for you to experience despite what life throws at you, that's a completely different perspective.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
So running this idea though of running with ambition, I know you have a lot of conversations with your boys when you take them to school, and this is one of the things that you talk about, and you're seeking to teach your boys like hard work, but from a perspective of being secure. Do you mind kind of letting us into those conversations? Because I know I know there's a common refrain that you use with your boys to remind them of their security and your love, but also you push them to do really hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to kind of set the stage for this and be a real human, during my hard season, I didn't have any margin for things to go wrong because I was thinking wrong, as we've established. So any behavior with my boys, I was the hammer, they were the nail. And so I caused a lot of damage, and it really bothered me, but I didn't really know how to fix it or what to do. So I caused damage for years in my oldest son's life, and not physical damage. I was never physically abusive, but I was, I'm like killer whale body type and dark hair and deep voice, and it's fairly easy to
killer whale body type. It took me a second.
I was in Louisville yesterday, and the bathrooms had a sign. It was like Clydesdales for the men, and like Mares for the women or something. And I was like, "There's never been a more appropriate label on a bathroom than this for me. I know where to go." But yeah, so I want to say that first.
For sure, I love that.
To me, the most encouraging thought that my wife Shayna offered to me was, if you repair well, there's a lot of psychology around a bad thing happens. If you repair well as parents, you're stronger having had that bad thing happen than if it never happened at all. So it's not about, as parents, like avoiding mistakes, because
good luck.
I already had to apologize once this morning. Like that's not the point. The point is repair well. So now there's durability to relationships, and what my grandpa modeled in my life of I mess up, I apologize to my sons. And in our household, a proper apology is two parts. It's very, very distinctly communicating what you did wrong and saying what you're going to do differently next time. So you need that second part,
right,
to repair well.
That's repentance.
And so for my boys, I apologize freely. And that's been the means for me to turn from a hammer as they look at me to the way that I've learned to receive the Lord's love and how he looks at me. And so our routine, what you were getting at, is our routine in the morning is, and this isn't every morning, but is, what are you looking forward to about today? And we all share. And then I ask them, do you know what I see when I look at you? And when I first started this, that was actually a extremely terrifying question to ask, because I had my own thoughts on what they saw, and it was going to sound like a hammer. They probably wouldn't have used that exact language, but the reason that I started doing that is I kind of like doing scary things. That was scary. And two, what I've learned through working with Gary and what I've learned through having brothers like you guys who just talk honestly and are not doing the organized theater thing is it's an extremely rare form of wealth to be able to share yourself freely and be accepted. And so the foundational principle with my boys on that is I need them to know that when I look at them, I see strength and courage. I see an 8 and 10-year-old that are getting in trouble for wet willies at school and, doing the whole shame cycle thing because they, let their teacher down and, me and Shayna down or whatever. And it's like, that's actually not the point. The point is character development and healing well and just maintaining that ambition in the pursuit of character, but doing it from a place of consistency and a clarity of how they're viewed when we talk to them. And so that's been really good. And I've seen the look in their eyes change when they look at me now. And it's been
beautiful.
There's some progress there, which is really good. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that exactly what Paul does in the beginning chapters of this letter when he's rooting all of the Philippian church's identity in the reality that Jesus, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to grasp, but emptied himself, taking on the form of a servant and dying a death on a cross to show them how secure they were in his love. So that now when he gets to the imperatives about pressing on in maturity, when he's going to start talking about how to live peaceably among one another, when he talks about learning to be content in all circumstances, these imperatives of, son, this is how you ought to live, are all in light of how secure they are in being beloved children of God, that were, by the way, displayed in the behavior of God in his sacrificial death and resurrection, which is what you're saying. That's a terrifying question as an earthly broken dad to ask your kids, but hopefully over time they can, with honesty and transparency, say, Dad, when I think about the way that you see me, I see love and joy. And
the last distinction on that is I don't just say you're courageous, because that's kind of weak. Like you could just you can go on ChatGPT and be like, give me a bunch of positive words to say to my boys. Like it has to be linked to actual real life.
For sure.
And behaviors you observed. And then I think then they believe it, and I think then it's sincere.
It's good. I want to press into maybe your relationship with Shayna. I would suspect that she is probably the most tangible expression of what you felt from your grandpa when you were younger, just in terms of love and acceptance and delight. The reason I want to say that is to clarify that this isn't necessarily just a mystical experience between you and the Lord, but even the way that you sense and perceive and relearn these things comes through the body of Christ. I think I can establish that in the book of Philippians, because early in the book he says, God is my witness, how I yearn for you all with the affection of Christ Jesus. I would guess that Paul was to the Philippians what your grandpa was to you, that when they read Paul's letter, when they had the rare opportunities of seeing him, that they saw delight. Paul believed something about them that they probably didn't even believe about themselves, that they were beloved in the Lord, all these things. It's funny, I tried to let the direction of the passage that I was preaching dictate sort of where I was going, but my favorite verse in the whole book, I didn't even really touch on. Chapter 4, verse 1, therefore, my brothers, whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm thus in the Lord, my beloved. Think about all those endearing terms. My brothers, I love you. I long for you.
You're my joy and my crown.
You're my crown. Stand firm.
That's what I see when I look at you.
Yeah, stand firm in the Lord. Oh, by the way, my beloved. Yeah. He's like gushing over them. It's like, dude, like chill out. Like
just a giant love set.
Let me close that loop. I'm not trying to cut you guys off. Paul is a tangible, to use the word loosely, he's an incarnation of the love of God for them.
Yeah.
So now it's not mental gymnastics, and I'm not describing what you're saying as that, but I think it could potentially be misinterpreted that way, that it takes this strenuous mental effort. And I'm not opposed to that in theory, but I just want to affirm that there's a communal dimension of what you're talking about, of like we can become to each other the voice, the manifestation of the delight of God in each other's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, Shayna is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and she has been faithful and patient and long-suffering, the literal fruit of the Spirit in my life. And anytime I think marriage is easy, it's because she makes it easy, not necessarily because of the emotional roller coaster that I can be. So yeah, to your point, she has, through act, affirmed what she sees when she looks at me beautifully over 15 years.
Praise God. Praise God.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying on the mental gymnastics note, because it may sound like it's just this conceptual theory that, you know, you just gotta kind of like outsmart the system. But the best way I can think about that is, Brent Becker taught me this. So when Jesus and his followers are on the boat heading across the Sea of Galilee and they meet this storm that terrifies them, Jesus is asleep. Most of his followers spent their life on the sea. And so it would be easy to draw the conclusion that you should trust what you are good at. So maybe it's mental gymnastics. Maybe it's I'm really good at concepts and, you know, thinking for a living and all that. But it just reminds me of the quote that you're never going to learn to swim reading about water. That's not what I'm saying. We're not talking about reading about water.
No, for sure.
They encounter a storm as sailors that they literally cannot solve for. So they have to wake Jesus up, and he rebukes them for their fear. And so my point in sharing that is, I think that's the difference between the mental gymnastics of like, I am a sailor and I'm equal to whatever. Like, you're not. That's just true that you're not. So what does that top value hierarchy on the ladder, your relationship with the Lord, really look like? Whether you are moving through life from your strength, which some people may be intellectually, you know, very good at thinking and maneuvering, it doesn't matter how good you are at that separate from the Lord, you will meet a storm that will crush you.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
The point of what I'm saying today is not think differently. The point that I'm making is there are ways to think to expose lies. I've just shared what I do.
Yeah.
To reveal where your value hierarchy is wrong.
Right. It's good.
And so that's the point in all of this.
Yeah, no, super helpful.
That I want to be clear on is this isn't like, here's some cute ways to think. It's like, you know, I wrecked my life.
This is what I did when I realized the storm was.
I was like Lieutenant Dan out there, you know, just mad at God. Like, you call this a storm, and I'm, you know, there's nothing left to hold on to. Like, that's how far I fought.
Yeah.
And then I had nothing.
So then I hear
and I did all the gymnastics. I did all the
surrendering.
gymnastics, and that was my result. Yeah. So the point isn't the gymnastics.
No, but what I hear is an act of yielding and surrendering to his lordship. It's an act of the will to yield to the reality that Jesus is Lord, whether you choose to acknowledge him or not.
Yes.
Because he wakes up and looks at his disciples and says, "You of little faith."
Yes.
So for me, the opposite of that is to have faith and trust, which requires a surrender and a yielding of our will to the reality that could it be that even though our hearts deceive us, God is greater than our hearts. He truly does love us, and we can know this for a fact because greater love has no one than this, that someone should lay down their life for their friends. And oh, by the way, you're my friend, and I'm the one that's going to be laying down my life for you. And that's the gospel, man. And the opposite of that, and we talked about this before, yielding a life surrendered to Jesus is living a life surrendered to our carnal desires, which is that's the why. That when you were talking about the why, I was like, okay, I also have another why, and that is today I'm going to live. The avoidance of pain is kind of like when Paul says in your text, and you talked about this on Sunday, when Paul says their God is their belly.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's the other choice. I can feel all these feelings, these carnal desires, these epithumia, and I can yield to those, or I can yield to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I'm a servant.
Either way. Yeah, there's no
slave.
You're not, there's no such thing as not serving one of those two paths.
Completely agreed.
And now we're in that second section of your message where you talked about walking with intention. Is it Augustine that said, life without reflection is a life not worth living?
No, Socrates.
Why did I think it was Augustine? But anyway.
Two great thinkers. Very different.
Very
two
different.
Great thinkers.
Either way.
And the unexamined life is not worth living, is what Socrates says.
Yeah, I think that's half the battle of living a life of intention.
But yeah, just a quick note on the God is our bellies. One of my reflections is, the belly is, to me, akin to consumption. And so I think that's kind of a simple way to think about the concept of the God being the belly and it being consumption. And you use the word, surrendered. And, that word may have connotations to it. In my life, what I've found is there is no greater comfort than surrendering to the ultimate strength, the ultimate power, the ultimate authority. So the context around the word surrender, I think, is so critical because you're not just yielding on a whim. You're bending your knee to the one who created you.
For sure.
And what comes out of that is not consumption. I think what comes out of that is the creativity of service and the creativity and the joy of.
I like that.
Of ambition, I guess, to use the word we were talking about earlier.
You embody a great spirit of curiosity and creativity, and I love those words, and I think it's so fitting that you bring both of those up because those are values and fruit in your life that I think the Lord has given you, and so I just want to affirm that in you.
Appreciate that.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, and you even think about physical maturing biologically. The least mature human beings biologically are driven by their most primal desires. I'm crying because I need milk. Mm-hmm. And because they're immature, we don't condemn them for that. We go and feed our infants, and we give them milk. And then they cry because they need to be changed. And but as you mature and grow, you still have just as many desires, but you're able to surrender more and more of your desires.
Yeah.
That's the process of walking intentionally.
Was it Paul that said that he longs for the church to go from milk to meat?
Yes.
So like that's an interesting concept, but I think the other context is using an infant as an example. Surrender means that the maturity process does not require life to go according to my terms. So in other words, I'm less fragile in my relationship with life, as opposed to an infant must have life go according to their terms.
Yeah.
And so I think a check engine light for me is if I'm going through my day or my week and
That's good.
Like life must go according to these terms. Well, it's like guaranteed I'm fragile, guaranteed I'm not learning, guaranteed I'm afraid, because the antithesis of joy and creativity is fear. And fear tells you to go hide and make yourself less and diminish yourself, which is the opposite of creativity, which is the image we were created in. So it just doesn't work. And it happens every day to all of us. I don't think there's ever an arrival, but again, this is not mental gymnastics. It's just like thinking that way forces you to reconcile your value hierarchy.
Yeah. I wonder if what you're describing is something that David learned when he writes. This is one of my favorite Psalms. It's only 3 verses in Psalm 131 when he says, "My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have calmed and quieted my soul. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore." He even uses that weaning language. That weaning language to me is so beautiful. He's like, I've learned to quiet my soul like a child who is literally being weaned off of his mother's milk. And then he turns that into a command to Israel, put your hope in the Lord.
Yeah. There's this respite that's pictured in that psalm, this repose, this calmness and peace that allows him to resurrect to that hope. It's like when you're in this position of respite, okay, Israel, hope in the Lord.
Mm-hmm. But it requires a weaning off of those carnal desires that drive you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about a proverb when you were teaching on Sunday that is a little off balance in its connection to this, but it was going on in my brain. And it does relate, I think, in my mind to what you were just sharing, Tryg, which is Proverbs 13, there's a verse that says, "Unused fields could yield plenty of food for the poor, but unjust men keep them from being farmed." I think when I think about my career or my relationships, and I think about my life and the fact that it has fields, any good and perfect gift is from above. So those fields exist first because I'm worthy of love. And on the note of ambition, there's a call to wean. You must wean in order to plow and to harvest. And so linked to this concept of creativity, I think the act of sowing and reaping is creative. And to die at 30 and be buried at 70 means you stopped in your fields for some reason. And that should be an issue. And it should scare you. And there's a call that requires intentionality and honesty. You didn't create your personality, but your personality is different than anyone else, which is a marquee of the intelligence of our Creator. So maybe you got different crops, Tryg.
Yeah.
But the act of actively sowing in the face of fear, or in the face of whatever may be an obstacle to that, is, I think we're called to take that seriously. And
100%.
It does require weaning to do that, because it's not done for you.
Yeah, 100%.
The field was done for you.
Yeah, but now you got to cultivate it. Mm-hmm. You got something.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have. Paul uses this idea of running in multiple places, but in my mind, most prominently, he uses it at the end of his life. 2 Timothy, his last letter, he's writing to this pastor, and man, some men die at 35, but they're buried at 70. Yeah. He didn't die at 35. I don't know how old he was. The dude died when he was buried. He ran till the end. So this is a somewhat longer section, but listen to this, because it touches on multiple things that we're talking about. "I charge you, Timothy, in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who's to judge the living and the dead, and by his appearing in his kingdom, preach the word." Do the thing. Do your job. Work. Exert yourself. "Be ready in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. They wander. But as for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. Okay, Jesus is going to appear, so work, preach, do the thing. Verse 6, for I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I fought the good fight. I finished the race. I've kept the faith. Henceforth there's laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. He uses the race imagery. His whole life was a straining toward this day, and now he's got a strong suspicion that wreath is close at hand. Mm-hmm. He has a strong sense that ribbon for crossing the line is imminent.
Yeah,
and he's like,
yeah,
I'm ready to die. I'm ready to be buried
at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time.
Yeah. And he balances that with a charge to a younger man to keep running even as he's finished his race.
Which is, to me, vision. There's scripture that says, for lack of vision, my people perish. On the note of vision, like, this is just pure vision.
Incredible.
From credibility, from a life well lived, where death and burial happen simultaneously. And I read a quote recently on the note of vision. But before I share that, one other note, I think vision done well does two things. It captures the head and the heart. So when we're talking, or you sit across the table from anybody, you know if you're just talking with your heads.
Yeah.
You also know when the heart's available. So vision done well does both. There's head and heart in that. Yeah. The quote went something like, vision done well articulates the future or direction so clearly it's as though you're speaking of the past. And so what's so cool to me about that is he's speaking to his past, but he's compelling Timothy, and he's giving him head and heart with clarity.
It's good. Yeah. I've loved that. The letter of Philippians is way more mental and cerebral and about the mindset. It's not only about that, but it's way more than I think people realize at the start.
Yeah.
He's extraordinarily concerned with their brains.
Yeah.
Not to the neglect of their heart, their bodies, etc., but I think he knows that, like, this is command central.
Yeah.
And you are not your thoughts, not to rehearse what you were saying earlier, but like as an observer of that stream, take him captive.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Well, and the soul has dyed the color of its thoughts. So, this is what you just read that's a beautiful color.
Yeah. Yeah. And to Timothy, he's like, look, Jesus is going to appear, so work hard.
Yeah.
And the same appearance is his comfort, that a crown is just one arm length away. Same event, sort of different application depending on.
Yeah, it's a man who understands he's being called from heaven to heaven, and that really is the genesis of his motive.
It's beautiful.
With everything that he's everything you spoke on, and even in that, like, that's to me the red thread is how do you keep going? Well,
that's
sounds really
question.
simple, but if you're being called from heaven to heaven, that's a pretty compelling reason to do the thing.
Do the thing, and it's going to be hard. You don't get to choose whether it's going to be painful or not. In the words of our football coach, it's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You'll get to your burial date, and you'll regret that you haven't changed in 35 years. You haven't grown. You haven't matured. Or you'll be buried, and like Paul, who I'm sure had many things that he wished he would have done differently, but he did them. I don't even know what I'm saying. He fought the good fight. He poured it all out. He laid it all. He had no regrets as far as the effort that he laid on the field for the sake of the gospel. And I want to get to the end of my life, and I want everyone that calls Crossroads home to be able to get to the end of their lives and say, I didn't hold anything back. Which does not mean that I lived a life without mistakes, but it was the life where I woke up every single morning and actively pursued maturing in the Lord.
Yeah, Martin Luther said, if you're going to sin boldly. Go for it. Just live hard for the Lord. You're going to make mistakes. Sin boldly. Go to the throne of grace with even more boldness. And maturing is so incredibly fun. Again, with the Apostle Paul, even more so than him, I can say, I have not obtained this. I have not arrived. I'm not standing here as a mature Christian. But the fun part about maturity isn't the arrival; it's recognizing where you've departed from. We left Egypt.
Yeah,
we're growing. Have I gotten my temper under control? By no means. Is it a lot better than what it used to be? Yeah. What a joy that I'm not where I want to be, but I'm certainly not where I used to be.
You're like a ball-peen hammer.
Yeah.
You're not a sledgehammer anymore.
Right. It's a joy to just to have glimpses that God has not forsaken me. He is working in me and through me, and the perfect work that he began, he will certainly be faithful to see to completion.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to say that we've implied but haven't stated explicitly is that this is a communal endeavor.
Yeah.
Like, the joy of maturing is the fact that you get to do it in community. I mean, we often tell each other that, like, true wealth is deep, real, Christ-centered relationships. If you have those, you are a wealthy human being. And that's because those are the vehicle through which God is going to sanctify you. That's why that language, I didn't even put that together when you were preaching on Sunday, but like the cascading waterfall of gushing language in chapter 4, verse 1, my crown, my joy, my beloved, but then there's still a command, stand firm. Yeah. It's like, that gets me fired up.
Yeah,
when I'm being told from brothers in my life or my wife, when she challenges me, but I know that it's from a place of deep affection, I'm like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. When I know that people that I follow in my life, the leaders in my life, love me, let's go. You can challenge me to the skies.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of an old Covey quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
That's literally what you're
saying. For sure.
Right there,
and
man.
The church in Philippi knew that with Paul. And, it's a beautiful reality. Yeah. And this has been a beautiful conversation. Thanks for opening up a little bit about your story. And I literally mean it. I'm not just blowing smoke because you're a friend of mine. Like, when I think of like someone who has pursued growing intentionally with humility, it's you, brother. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Along with many other brothers and sisters here, but you are top of mind. So
you know what we should have people do is put their favorite Phil Simms quote from this episode in the comments below.
It was fantastic.
And then they can like the ones
it's like a fortune cookie episode.
Yeah, exactly. No, such a blessing, brother. They call you the modern C.S. Lewis around here, and you're gonna deny that, but we give glory to God for your wisdom.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for coming, and we love you, Crossroads. Have a great week. See ya.